Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sofa Series Artist Spotlight. Ha cha cha. Today, with me from Baltimore, Maryland, is Bonnie Lander. Hello.
Hello, Leslie.
Hello, Bonnie. How are you?
I'm great.
No, you're not. You're all right. Wouldn't that be great
Yes,
if we just cried for like 30 minutes and that's the whole interview?
I'm
That's
fine with that.
it might just
That
happen.
it would be honest.
Yeah, yeah. It might just happen. Ah. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What's your sign? Where have you been in your life? And how did you get to Baltimore?
Okay. Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, which is 45 minutes north of Philadelphia. Uh, and I went to college in Coral Gables, Florida, at the University of Miami. I Then I did my master's at Peabody in Baltimore, which is how I first got to Baltimore and how I first became acquainted with everything Baltimore. When I was done, I fled and I moved to Philadelphia for a few years and was there as a gigging musician. And then I met you in San Diego, where I did my doctorate. I'm Dr. Bonnie Lander.
That's
And when
right.
I
We
finished,
should go back and redo all of the introductions. I'm sorry. This is Dr. Bonnie Lander.
yes, thank you.
Forgive.
I didn't want to say anything,
But you
but
did.
yeah.
Anywho.
Anywho, after I became Dr. Bonnie Lander, I decided to move back to Baltimore, where I still have, which has an incredible art scene, a wonderful group of friends and collaborators, as well as um, moving back to the East Coast seemed like a good idea because there's people in New York that I've been able to collaborate with. At Peabody, I co-founded Rhymes of the Opera with my other Peabody colleagues, Ruby Fulton and George, Elizabeth and Robert. So moving back made sense, and now I live in the Bromo Arts District in Baltimore, Maryland. I live in a warehouse space that is a live workspace for artists, and I'm a freelance musician and voice teacher.
That's awesome. That's so great. what would
Yes.
How would you describe what is the Baltimore arts music scene like? If you could describe it.
um, well, what attracted me to Baltimore is the strong experimental music scene and a DIY music scene. So you have a lot of people who are making music and making art, coming from all different walks of life. And it's a very small scene,
Mm-hmm.
very close knit. So it's big, there's like a nice healthy amount of people, but everyone knows each other. So it's super intimate.
Yeah.
Lot of like underground art spaces, lots of well, when we used to have shows, we don't have shows anymore, but there's lots of, um, you know, broken down warehouse spaces and places you can go for shows and some very nice venues, that you can go to as well. And when Baltimore is really going, there's usually something going on every night of the week. If it's like, electro pop or noise music, experimental music, dance music, DJs, brass bands,
You name it.
name it,
We got
name it.
it.
Someone's doing it in spandex.
Thank God for that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good to hear.
yeah. It's great.
And so in your own practice, what do you primarily do? You do lots of improvisation? You do lots of score stuff. Do you do those in the same kinds of contexts? Is that
Sometimes,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, as a classically trained singer, uh,
No.
I think, and as a gigging human in this time period that we're in, I do. lots of different types of gigs at this point. I have my singing church job, which is very nice. We mostly do early music, like Bird and Purcell, so I get to do my straight tone boy choir thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's very lovely. Um, I get to do a lot of improvisation. I do some solo stuff, but I also have been working with a number of with some people here in the city. There's a saxophone player named John Diker who I joined. We started like three different improvised groups. um, I let's see. What else have I been doing? Oh, I've been performing Kurt Schwitter's or Sonata at lots of different places.
Explain to the people what is the Ursinata. It is wonderful, but explain what that is.
The Ursinata is like a 30 minute long, 35-minute long text piece by German artist Kurt Schwitters, who's from the Dadaist movement, early 20th century Germany.
Hmm.
And it's nonsense. It's basically nonsense German text that's set in a way that implies a lot of a certain rhythmic variety. And it's written like a sonata, so there's all these themes and variations. So he'll have one theme, and then he'll expand on it in different sections and in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned it once when I was going on tour with some members of Thing NY a few summers ago. Paul Pinto and Jeff Young, we all went on tour together to a new music festival in Omaha, Nebraska. And I was like, well, I guess I'll learn Sonata for this tour.
What the hell?
And yeah, I'll just
no big.
I've been meaning to learn it, and I thought it would be really. I thought people really wouldn't like it because it's like long and nonsense. Well, it turned out to be a real crowd pleaser, and I've been able to do it in a number of different settings since then. It's something that's been really fun. And then last year, I really fortunately, well, in New York, I worked with Paul Pinto and Kaylee Butcher. We started a trio called Love, Love, Love.
Which one are you? The first love, the second love, or the third love? Are you all three of them at the same time?
We take turns. We take turns,
Love, love, love.
All fairness.
I love that. Egalitarian ensemble.
Yeah. So
and what's love, love, love?
Pieces for ourselves. We write pieces for ourselves to perform. We put out a couple of video pieces. So one of our first one was called 3 Songs Near Omaha, Nebraska, and it features Paul, Kaylee, and I in a car lip syncing to a track that Paul Pinto made.
You did send that to me, and it is rad. It is super duper good. And so you guys are continuing to do remote video pieces for these times.
We've met a few times and tried to plan some things, but we're all a little like but yeah, I mean, Rhymes with Opera, we're definitely have a cyber season that we've launched. So we hosted the Adams Run Watch Party, and we're doing a couple of salons. In fact, we may be doing a Southern California salon. So you and I should.
Ooh la 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 la. The answer is already yes. But so how did you get into an experimental music practice? So your background is all the high notes as a coloratura soprano, and you also play the violin. So how did you find an experimental practice, or how did it find you? I guess.
I actually found it in Baltimore. 10 ago. How old am I? I was at Peabody doing my master's with Phyllis Bridgelson, and we started working on a lot of contemporary, modern, avant-garde music.
That is pretty freaking rare to have. You've got a conservatory voice teacher who is down to clown. She is down to give you the avant-garde stuff. That's pretty lucky. It's pretty fortuitous.
It was how she made her career, you know. She was a coloratura. I think she would identify as coloratura soprano who worked with all of the composers
Mm-hmm.
from our esteemed 20th century canon. So
Mm-hmm.
we'd have these repertoire classes. She'd be like, when I was on the phone with Messiaen and having cocktails in the garden, or oh, when I worked with Ligeti, oh, when I was on tour with Boulez. So she's just drop it.
Yeah.
Like that was her career. She had perfect pitch and a solid technique, and just was every composer's dream. She could do
Yeah.
anything. So,
Yeah.
you know, and what a wonderful mentor. I mean, just really, I cared about my direction as a student. Cared about still cares about my career.
Hmm.
Like, still tries to help me.
That's amazing. When,
Still tries to help all of her students.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
That is so great.
She was a huge influence on me. I still feel really indebted to her. But but I was living in Baltimore working with her, and then I went to the High Zero Festival, which happens in September and is run by the High Zero Foundation. It's one of the presenters in Baltimore. They run the Red Room series, and which is all experimental music in this tiny little room inside of a bookshop. Um, and I went there, and that whole festival is just, they pull improvisers from all over the world and from the community, and they put ensembles together of people who've mostly never met before, never played together before, and they improvise a set of music. And that's where I first saw Yacht Blanc perform. That's the first time I ever saw people improvising in like long form group formation, and it just all blew my mind.
What?
And Yacht Blanc, as you know, is like the Schwitter's huge Schwitter's
He's the
performer.
dude. Yeah, he's the current dude anyway.
And I was supposed to share a bill with him in Philly 2 months ago, and I was gonna do Ur Sonata, and then COVID. So, so what can you do?
Stupid Rona. Oh, that sucks.
One day,
One day.
one day.
How do you nurture an improvisatory practice? So, I mean, I think even for me as somebody who's around improvisers, I don't ever do it. I don't ever call myself an improviser. I'm still very much like a little freaked out and afraid. Which I know I shouldn't be. Like I know. But how do you?
Get with it, lady.
I'm sorry.
Give in.
I'm a dweeb. I like dots and things on the page. uh, how do you nurture and kind of cultivate an improvisatory practice? How do you practice improv?
Mm. Mm.
Next question.
I know. I mean, I for I've it's for me. It's always been an impulsive feeling,
Mm,
that exists, and there's always a need to make the sound, but it's whether or not it's how deep. It's almost like it's a hypnotic flow state to
mm,
get into, and it's sort of like giving in um, to this flow state, which is really abstract, a hard thing to describe when improvising. And like I only do it in public because people seem to like it. Like I don't really get, like
you don't get anything out of it. This is the scoop of this interview is that Bonnie
I
like he like doesn't do
I
anything for
get a
me.
lot out of it. I know I get a lot out of it. I don't know. I don't know. I've frequently been surprised by how much other people can get out of it, and but for me, it's sort of like almost like the same feeling of journaling. It's like going inside and tapping into an internal feeling, and then expressing that feeling
Mhm.
um, as instinctively and spontaneously as possible.
Mhm.
And adrenaline helps. Being really neurotic helps because there's always energy
Yeah, yeah,
there. And
yeah. It's got to go somewhere.
I'm not, yeah, it's got to go somewhere. So what happens is the ways that the times where I think I've grown a lot as an improviser are times where I'm like, if I'm on tour and I'm improvising every night,
Mm.
or if I'm playing with lots of different people over a short period of time, so it becomes regular practice. or if I make a piece
Mm.
that's about with an improvised element, and I have to practice it and record it and listen back to it and refine it.
Mm.
And in that last one, you really become aware of your tendencies, the things that you tend to do no matter what. And from there, you can begin to cultivate a vocabulary and identify, you know, what it is you like to do. And then when you're doing it, you're like, oh, I'm doing that thing that I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then shape it a little bit, you know?
Well, I mean, I think like, somebody who is not super interested in trying it themselves, what I get from watching you do it.
I haven't sold you yet.
Nah.
Listen.
No. No, I can
Shit.
be vulnerable and spontaneous in other ways, but it ain't that. But it's that I don't know. I think the sort of immediacy of that vulnerability, and that it's like what you said. It is for you. It's like journaling, and I think for the audience, it's like journaling too. It's that we can kind of like we can see we can be this like listening empath, that we can kind of like feel what you're feeling, and what you're going through in that very very moment, and that it is a very emotional and a very visceral thing when I see you specifically improvise, even when it's very silly, even when it is like deeply like full of pathos, and the whole spectrum. It's very very visceral, and it's awesome. You're like the best at it. You're super good.
Oh,
But you did. So you talked a little bit about like creating a piece that is going to be that its intention is that it isn't improvised, but it's got some sort of structures. So you did that with your dissertation, with your trio with rhymes with opera, your gang. And this piece was called Inside Voices. And can you talk a little bit about kind of how you structured the improvised worlds, and yeah, what was the piece about, and yeah, just sort of talk a little bit about that.
oh man. Sure.
Sure.
Um, that piece was the second piece of a series of pieces called Inside
Mm.
Voices. Um, the first one was a recital I gave at UCSD. That was me in an electronic track with my recorded voice. That one was called Coping Mechanisms.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Inside Voices too.
yeah.
I mean, these are things that,
Electric
like,
Boogaloo.
to me, I'm like making movies, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm the only one that knows these things.
Yeah.
But like, it was called Coping Mechanism, and it was, especially at that time in my life, I think I was making a lot of art to process trauma or traumatic experiences and feelings. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of anger and in a lot of my work, and a lot of frustration, and a lot of feeling captive. And I wanted to make an improvised opera for my dissertation, or at least figure out what that would mean, not really knowing what it would mean,
Mm-hmm.
and not really finding examples of it that were like what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of stabbing in the dark for a long time. And I was working with Robert and Elizabeth, who were classically trained, who went to Peabody, but had no background in free improvisation. They were open to it.
Not like me.
Not unlike you. Not unlike you. So a large part of the piece was trying to figure out how to like push them into that world.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of like, I would have them journal, and then I would take fragments from their journals and make a improvised structure out of them. Be like, okay, now you're going to improvise this feeling from this thing you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing. That was one exercise that we did. But then, really, what it came down to is they came to San Diego for the week of their production, and we really had to just workshop it holistically on the set.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned into from workshopping it together, it became three movements, a three-movement piece that you saw. The main conceit, and this is something that I think I always really wanted, was to have people in separate rooms who were isolated and suffering and trying to figure out in their private moments how to cope with those feelings. I feel like most opera characters, like their arias are all coping. They're
Mm-hmm.
all like processing an emotion, processing a feeling. And I wanted to like, make it very abstract so that there would be freedom to like take those characters in different places. So over the week, we ended up developing characters and um, developing narratives for ourselves that we felt were really strong and really comfortable. And the end of the opera was just that we had to end up somehow together
Mm-hmm.
in the same room. Which is funny because it's like kind of what's going on right now. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, we're all just sort of like suffering together alone, completely alone. Um, whoa, alone.
so
Yeah.
so it ended up being less improvised and more set, more as a set piece by the time it turned into a piece. But
Mm-hmm.
we still we actually relaunched a movement from it as a short version, as an improv, and tried to like recreate the structure of that improvisation
Mm-hmm.
in for another performance. It was really fun, you know. But it was fun to try to like recapture that what we had created in that time together.
I mean, could you recapture it, or was it something different?
Well, I wouldn't see it, so
Hmm.
I couldn't tell.
I don't know.
I think I think we I think we had a similar smell. I don't know if it was totally the same, but it smelled the same.
Oh, okay.
It was like it had a shimmer. It was cool. I liked it. I always have fun.
I think.
But there's people in the room, there's people in the room. I always wonder if people are looking at it going, this is cool, or if they're looking at it going,
Huh?
what? It's hard to tell. But
I mean, do you want to
at
know?
that,
Do you really want to know that ever? If people are like,
um, no, I guess not.
yeah, I don't ever want to know that.
Well, it was funny though because we did this retrospective at Brooklyn College, which is why we redid the piece. And if there were a few people in the audience, people who I did not talk to when we did the show in New York, people I did not talk to, who were like, by the way, I saw your show 2 years ago, and I loved it. And I loved it tonight, and it just was so moving. And I was just like, "Where were you?
Hey.
Where did this come from?" So
Oh, that's
it always
awesome.
surprises me. It always surprises me how moved people are by super abstract art.
Don't be surprised by that. Like it's I don't know. I don't think that um I don't think that maybe are you thinking like the masses couldn't handle it, or it's like I think people can handle it. I think people can sort of understand that an idea is just an idea and it can sort of exist in a million different permutations. I think give people some more credit, Bonnie. All
All right,
right.
you're right. You're right.
But also, like, people that are
Leslie,
coming to Rhymes with Opera, like, have, like, they've got their palette. They're ready. They are primed and ready for this. So give them whatever you want. Go, Bonnie!
thank you, Leslie.
So, like, what other sorts of things is Rhymes with Opera in putting out other than these sort of like cyber salons? Like, what does a cyber salon look like? I'm gonna say it like that. Salon.
Well, salon.
Salon.
Well, we usually do salons in person in New York, and what that usually consists of is we've often done it as a potluck where we get 3 or 4 different singing groups from the area, and everybody presents and brings in their communities, and we all share like 4 sets of music over the course of the evening, representing the different groups. But what we're doing now that everything is cyber, we wanted to go real 90s
Totes.
cyber salons.
Totes.
Cyber salons. Um,
Jack into the net.
it's a totally free event. Like we're not, don't I'm not getting paid. No one's getting paid, and no one's charging.
Mm.
But it's just people from we just did our first cyber salon in the Pacific
Mm.
Northwest. So one of our company members, Ruby Fulton, has been teaching and working in Moscow, Idaho. So she arranged, yeah, for three different vocal centric performers to just present their work over the internet. And then Ruby presented a piece that she had just composed with a bunch of
Nice.
voices in it.
Well, that's nice. What's in Moscow,
Yeah.
Idaho? Potatoes?
What?
What's in Moscow, Idaho? Is there a college there? There's a college there.
There's a college.
Whoa.
And I should know the name of my
Your friend's
friend's
college that
college
she
that
teaches at?
she works at. Um, you want to say the university or
Oh,
uh,
that's the one. Go
anyway,
Hums.
composition professor
Yeah.
there. But she arranged. So basically, it's just finding people who are vocal performers who want to share their work and sharing it together and sharing it with each other's communities and growing our communities with each other and with our audiences.
That's fabulous. Fabulous. Do you ever miss singing opera? Opera with a capital O? Eh.
I guess I should say
No, you
yes.
don't have to.
I mean, we do operas. Last year we did a wonderful premiere of a piece by Daniel Thomas Davis called "The Impossible She" that was about the illicit love affair between Eleanor Roosevelt and Roosevelt. Am I
Ruzy
right to hit
Ruzy
that?
Velty.
Roosevelt.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no interest in going back to like the Puccinis and the Mozarts and all that. And all that.
Uh, I could never sing Puccini, even when I was younger and
Mm.
more full of life. I do miss Mozart. I love Mozart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So what is next for you during this this never ending cycle of bad news in the world? What is next? What is how are you processing all of this stuff, and are you turning any of your feelings, because I know you feel a lot of feelings. Do you process any of that into pieces? Are you thinking about next season, or are you just kind of trying to wait this out and see what happens?
Ooh, maybe a little bit of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a weird time. It's a weird time to be an artist. I'm mostly trying to figure out how to expand my voice studio. So now I have the time to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing, like, as I'm sure you have,
Mm.
the virtual voice
Oh
lessons.
boy, they are weird, but interesting. I don't know. I find that people are like learning how to listen differently in the sort of remote lesson. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of fascinating.
Well, I'm offering sliding scale lessons, sort of a pay what you can thing
Mm-hmm.
for people who are affected, in case people can't afford it,
Mm-hmm.
but still want to sing, because everybody needs to sing.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's cathartic. People,
yeah,
don't be afraid. Just barf it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
barf it out. I'm really hoping. Last spring, I was fortunate enough to get involved as a member of Robert Ashley operatic relaunch that was supposed to premiere this past May
Yeah.
in New York, and that has been indefinitely pushed back. But I think hopefully when we can be in the room again, we will make some recordings of that piece.
Yeah. Which piece was it?
It's called El Aficionado.
Mm. Mm. I love Robert Ashley.
Yeah, yeah, really cool. A lot of like a text
Mm-hmm.
opera.
Mm-hmm.
Very strange, very beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, well, I hope you guys can. It's just been kind of postponed, not necessarily completely canceled. Yeah.
As far as I know,
Well, good luck. I hope it happens. More people need
too.
to hear Robert Ashley, and more people need to hear you. So you're amazing.
Thank you. you.
Yeah.
I will be doing a virtual performance with the Red Room in July.
Ooh.
Um, I think it's like the 16th, Thursday, July 16th. So next I will be making something for that series, coming up with some homebrew.
What's the Red Room?
The Red Room is the experimental music series of the High Zero Foundation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
That is
based in Baltimore, Maryland.
awesome. Very cool. Well, send us, me and Brendan, the info, and we'll we'll spread the word. Get some eyeballs on your stuff.
Thank you.
'Cause you're great. So
Thank
Bonnie, darling, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. It's
You're
been my
welcome,
pleasure.
Leslie. Thank you.
My
And
pleasure.
thank you and Brendan for putting this together. This has been a real joy.
Labor of love from us. We are happy to do it, and the work we were not like we had like zero expectations that anybody would A, be interested in putting anything together, and then B, that everybody put like really phenomenal shit together for this thing. It's like, oh my god, everybody's incredible, just like bringing their A game. So we are humbled and grateful, and thank you very, 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 very much. Appreciate it. Alrighty, good talking to you. Bye
You
bye.
too.